Well, hello, and welcome to Timber's Fireside Learning Time. Let's get started, y'all. Alright, this is part 2 of video production for long distance hiking. I'm your host, Timber. Let's get started. A couple of things before we get going. Through hiking is hard, and so is making videos. So really think about if you want to do both at the same time. Little Engine, my wife, and I made a pact that if filming or video production ever got in the way of our through hike, we would stop filming. Luckily, that didn't happen. So really consider doing both if it's going to work out for you, whether or not the challenge is acceptable. The second thing, be respectful of other people out there. You are not the only one on trail. Follow leave no trace principles and consider the ramifications of busting out your camera and talking yourself out in the middle of the woods if that may ruin someone's experience. Always ask if people mind, especially if you're filming them, if they're in the shot. Just be polite, just be nice. That goes a really, really, really long way. Now on to part 2, filming. The things we're going to talk about today are the do's and don'ts that you want to keep in mind while you're out there, types of angles that you're going to get, types of shots that you're going to want to get, some common problems and some solutions to face, and then we'll go a little bit into audio. All right, so going into the do's and don'ts. The first do is always film for 10 seconds. You don't want to get something like around 2 seconds, and you just can't use that really well when you're editing. It's kind of a huge pain if you have like this beautiful shot, this vista, this mountain, this beauty that you climbed up for, you worked so hard, and you're like, oh my gosh, and it's like 2 seconds, and you try and edit that in later, and it's like, I really want to put that up there for like 6 whole seconds so people can appreciate that as much as I did. So just get 10 seconds. Now from that 10-second clip that you just saw, I can edit out whatever 1, 2, 3 seconds that I think were the best, where we all looked the most happy and smiley. Another don't is don't move the camera around a whole lot. You want to stay on that subject for 10 seconds. So if there's a flower or your friend or something's going on, just stick to whatever that is for 10 whole seconds. Maybe get another shot, but don't just move around the whole time because you're going to regret it when you're editing later. Another do that you want to focus on is keeping that camera steady. The easiest way to do that is to set it down. Use that tripod that I told you to bring in the last video. Stick that camera on there, put it on a rock, put it on a tree, just put it on the ground. You can get those nice walk-bys, you can get those beautiful vistas. If you climb up to that nice vista and pull the camera out and just try and record it that way, it's not going to be as good as if it was just completely smooth.
You know, sometimes you have to hold that camera, but do your best to stabilize it. Bring your elbows into your chest or lean up against a tree or something, just so you're not swaying or moving around. If you want to move with the camera, check this out.
Kind of get your arms out a little bit wider so you have more of a stabilization, and try and go for a nice, smooth, even walk, or you don't want to be bouncing up and down. So what I do, I try and squat down a little bit and just even out my gait when I'm walking so that I'm not bouncing upwards. I know it looks a little bit silly, but when you're going for the shot, that it's worth it later.
Many people like to get the camera out, hit record, and just walk like they normally do. Unfortunately, the image typically turns out like this, and it can be really hard to use later on because it's not that enjoyable to watch. However, if you stabilize your body a little bit, you can get a much smoother image. As you'll notice that it's not perfect, obviously, because our bodies are not designed for perfectly smooth movement. Our brain accounts for that on its own, but it does look a lot better than the first one.
Another dude that you want to focus on is keeping that camera handy. You want to be spontaneous. So if you look at Ambassador when he was on the trail, he had that fanny pack. He could just get that camera and take pictures whenever he wanted. I had my camera right on the strap. You do not put it in your pack, because if something awesome is happening, you have to stop, take off your pack, dig out for your camera, and then whatever's happening may already be done, or worse yet, and probably more likely, you'll never stop to get that camera out, because it's kind of a pain to stop and go through all that stuff. Usually you only do that when it's either hardcore break time or lunchtime. Angles. What kind of angles you should get? Keep it varied, but not crazy. You don't want to have the same angle all the time, but you also don't want to make it a music video.
When you have a subject speaking directly to the camera, it is best to have the camera right at the same level as your subject. Besides that, use those creative juices to come up with some unique aspects. Just be sure to keep everything comprehensible for the viewer.
So now let's go into the types of shots that you want to get. The biggest thing that I want to let you guys know about the shots and filming in general is that it's all about storytelling. One of the biggest things that I want to let you guys know about storytelling, and I think that what made our videos really interesting, is that we were talking to you, we were talking to ourselves later, we were talking to people, we weren't talking to a camera. A lot of people tend to get really robotic when they get in front of a camera. Don't think of it as a camera or some big awkward process, or that you may be talking to yourself in the middle of nowhere. You're talking to someone will be watching it. Shots are what make the scene, and the scenes are what tell the story. So when you're getting different types of shots, you want to get a wide variety. Think about getting a lot of action shots that shows any kind of hiking, walking, climbing, on the water, anything where you're doing something. And then get a lot of scene setting shots. So when you're at camp, or you're relaxing around a campfire, or you're taking a break, eating, those sort of things. Show, instead of just a big wide shot of a landscape, get some zoomed in of some flowers, of some small intricate details that you would notice when you're there and that catch your eye. Show those to the viewer. Don't just try and get it all in one shot.
Point of view. There are two types of point of view: subjective and objective. Now, when most people think of point of view, they think of subjective, where the camera is the subject, so you are the person that's filming. It can be a really interesting shot and allow the viewer to have a deeper connection with the subject, but it really doesn't place the character in the scene or allow for anything else but that one perspective. Objective point of view, on the other hand, takes the camera away from the subject and puts it basically anywhere else. These are a few ways that we used objective point of view to capture a lot of our scenes. The easiest thing to do is just set the camera down and point it at something interesting. Another way to use objective point of view, and probably my favorite because it combines an action shot with a narrative shot and sometimes with a scene setting shot, is what we called a stick pick shot. We sometimes called these look back shots, but basically it just captured the movement, where we are on trail, and the fact that we are going somewhere, literally. Another objective shot that we like to use is what we called a walk by. Basically we just set down the camera somewhere that we thought would look nice walking through, and we would walk through that. The only bad part is that you do have to walk back to that camera.
Alright, now I'm going to talk about a couple problems that you are 100% going to face while you're trying to create a video on trail. One is going to be dealing with wind, and the other is going to be dealing with bad lighting. So how do you deal with wind? The easiest way that I found it is to just face the opposite direction. If you're going directly into the wind with your camera, that wind's going to be hitting that microphone, and all you're going to hear is, and that sucks. No one wants to hear that. Another way you can do it if you want to get a nice scene behind is that you can cover up, kind of block that side of the microphone with your hand. So we did this a lot with our iPod, and sometimes our hand actually got into the shot, like in this shot right here, but we were able to block the wind, and probably not a lot of people noticed that the hand was in the shot, but you could hear clearly. So how do you deal with bad lighting on the trail? try and just move or get under the shade as much as possible. There are some times where it's not possible to do that, and you just have to calculate whether or not that shot's going to be worth it to tell the story that you're going to be telling. So here's something to think about when you're recording with a small device like an iPhone or an Android or point and shoot. We're using a point and shoot right now. Now think about this. I'm recording with audio so you can hear me nice and clearly, but now it's off the audio on the camera. So the really only way you can fix that, if you're out in the field, if you're in your through hike without carrying a recorder like I am right now, is to just either bring your camera forward or bring your subject forward so your audio gets better and better and better. So instead of trying to zoom into a subject, get that camera close to that person, or get that person closer, or person, whatever it is that you want to get the sound to, get that thing closer. All right, that does it for the filming episode. I hope you learned some helpful pointers. Now get out there and have fun practicing. Next time we'll talk about editing.